I read 100 palms over 5 days at Glastonbury this year in 2025. It was incredible. I read 100 palms over 5 days, and I learned a tremendous amount, not just about palmistry, but about humanity as well. And I read at the Healing Fields with Terry. We were probably pretty much the only two palmists there. We were flat out. We did not stop. It was extremely hot, very, very busy. People queued for up to 2 hours, sometimes more, just to get their palms read by us. And we worked in the healing fields. This is the entrance. We were just down here on the right here. It was just absolutely rammed. It was a privilege and an honor to have people wait for so long just to have their palms read. And there really is a great amount I learned. Now, firstly, the first thing I want to point out here is that the most common hand type, I suppose, were fire hands. People who are enthusiastic, people who are very social, often very business-minded, very blunt, sometimes impatient. They require challenge and change, consistent stimulation, otherwise they become bored very, very easily. They are often described as bubbly, intense, passionate, fiery, quite literally. And that was probably the most sort of common, and that is a long palm and short fingered person. If you have a rectangular palm, a long palm and short fingers, that's you, that's fire. And that's the most common client, I suppose. The second to that were water hands. I had long palmed, long fingered people. That was the second most common type. They are very sensitive, very emotional, very creative, very intelligent, artistic, and very intuitive. I was shocked at just how many intuitive types I met at Glastonbury. As well as that, I even came into contact with several highly psychic people, at least three very psychic people. And I found that the common theme here is that people avoid their psychic gifts. But some of the things that really shocked me was that I learned a great deal about palmistry. I learned how to identify specific things in the hands. And this is just through kind of, it's like a crash course, just speed reading 20 or so palms a day. And I learned how to identify ADHD in the hands, as well as autism, a little bit more specifically. I learned how to kind of pin that down. And I also learned what wasn't working so well. And I kind of threw out a couple of techniques a little bit there. So that was really helpful. But what I discovered out of 100 palms, and this really shocked me, was two of those people were in fact direct descendants of royalty. Now, I've only ever seen this once before out of thousands of palms that I've read. Once. And yet out of 100 people I saw this twice. I couldn't believe it. And one of these people in fact confirmed with me that they were direct descendant. I feel like when you mention something very specific to someone, like you have ADHD, or have you ever been told this, or have you thought this, or is there a diagnosis? And they say something like, do you know, I've always thought this. My doctor tells me I have it, but I haven't had a diagnosis. It's very validating, and it's very powerful to be made aware, to be provided with self-awareness, and that is the power of palmistry. I think one of the things that surprised me most was just how actually loving people are, how giving, how caring, how genuine people are. That was what really sort of shocked me, because I think at Glastonbury, reading palms, it was a bit different to my normal clients. My normal clients, they email me at home, and I get people with very real, profound problems they want answers to. But at Glastonbury, you're faced with people who are a lot more sort of impulsive, who just want to have a good time. They want to learn a bit more about themselves. They're interested, but it's not like they have a problem. So you meet a very different client audience, and I found that it was a good sort of case study for trying to understand humanity, I suppose, in 100 hands. And now I never went there with the intention of reading 100 hands, but that's what happened. And one of these people had, and I have the image right here. Now, two of these people, as I say, were direct descendants of royalty. At least that's my interpretation. One of those did, in fact, confirm that with me. She was quite shocked that I managed to spot that. Now, this is known as, in dermatoglyphics, it's quite commonly referred to as the loop of charisma. I don't subscribe a great amount of meaning to that. I believe, and this is more in line with kind of older interpretations of what this skin ridge pattern means, and it's more, to me, it's a sign of um, being related to royalty. It is extremely rare, and prior to Glastonbury 2025, reading palms, I'd only ever seen it once before. Now, I've seen it 3 times. Now, something else that was unusual was the age of my clientele. Some of them were very young, and this makes it very difficult because the lines in the hands haven't fully formed yet. Their futures are still in flux. And so it's very difficult to provide them with what might happen in future, and it's more about a sort of character assessment. But reading the fingerprints, I was able to reveal to people their life path and life purpose, and that was particularly useful for young people. And I found some actually tremendously powerful and very specific life purpose within some of the very young people that I read for. One of them will go on to be, permitting that he, completes his life purpose, a leader to other leaders. He will not necessarily become famous, but will work with very famous people. I read for the hands of two very um, affluent and influential CEOs of massive companies. I read for someone who was a sociopath. Out of those 100 people, just one of them was a sociopath. At least that was my interpretation seen in the hands. I'm not obviously a trained psychologist, but one of those people, a very young man, came to me very nervously and came into my tent, and I had the doors wide open for, safety, both myself and the client, really. And it was also extremely hot outside. I really burned to a crisp after a couple of days. I decided it was best to just take the work indoors, and it was a different kind of hot inside my tent. And everyone endured. And he had a Simeon line on both hands. And he'd read up about this. He was a little bit nervous about what I was going to say because of what he'd already read. Um, Never self-diagnosed, by the way. It's always good to be interested and curious, but yeah, you're too close to the situation really to fully make a conclusion on your own. Now, a single transverse crease line is what it's otherwise known as, and it's when the uh, headline and the heart line are joined as one, and they make a single horizontal crease across the palm itself, and it looks as though they've only got sort of two major palmar lines. And what this means is, in the left and right hands, is both their internal world and their external one. They are both their feelings and thoughts are fused as one. And I explained to him that this is a leadership quality, that there are some strong positives to this, but there also are some negative ones as well. And I felt like I sort of reassured him that he was intense and at worst, jealous, possessive, all-consuming in relationships. But I feel that having known those potential weaknesses, particularly in relationships, is a strength in itself. And some of the strengths were just being laser focused, being a high achiever, very ambitious, as I've mentioned, intense and passionate. And I always see it on the hands of big achievers. And I feel like he went away feeling a lot more um, reassured, and it kind of fit the bill really, because actually having a Simeon line in both hands, that's less than 1% of people, and I only saw that once whilst I was at Glastonbury reading palms. There was one person who was so shocked at my analysis of his character that he literally screamed expletives, and leapt, from the seat, sort of saying, I'm going to recommend everyone to you because that was incredible. For the most part, everyone was very, very happy. But there were some that were extremely happy. I had an incredible time reading palms at Glastonbury 2025. It was an immense experience. It was like a crash course. I learned a great deal about not only my own abilities, not only palmistry itself, but how to be more concise. I struggle with waffling on, in case you hadn't already realized if you're new to this channel. But I learned a great deal from Terry as well, because Terry's method was, he just sort of said it straight. People, their attention span, for the most part, most people, it's 20 minutes. That's it. So you've got that window. Find out what you can see in the hands that is most crucial to get across. Make notes and give them those notes so they've got something to take away from, because they will forget things that you've said as well. And just watching him work was quite incredible, and it was a privilege and it was an honor, and there was no way I would have gotten into Glastonbury without Terry. So massive thank you to Terry. He said that it's his last year there. He also said that he wouldn't be going if it weren't for me, and his entire purpose was to go there and sort of get me in the door. So I won't be going next year, only because they're not doing it next year, but I will be going at 2027. I will likely be alone doing it, so I'll be even busier. So it stands to reason I need to be even more concise. But if you are coming to Glastonbury 2027, come to the healing fields. You'll see me, and I will read your palms, and it will be an honor. I'd love to see you there. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next one. Please do like and subscribe.